Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Happy Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Sierra, and today I am joined by a good friend of Weave, Tim Dwyer from Prompt. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, Tim is a seasoned professional with extensive experience in business development and marketing. He's currently serving as VP of Growth at Prompt Therapy Solutions, which we'll talk about more in a second, and he's been doing that since August of 2019. Now, he previously held the position of Director of Operations at Blade Urban Air Mobility, where contributions were made to the innovative digital approach in short-distance aviation from May 2016 to February 2019. And his academic background includes a degree from Fordham Gabelli
School of Business.
Gabelli School of Business. Well, so let's start off with Prompt. So for those that aren't familiar, tell us about Prompt, how you got into it, what your role has been, and what you guys are doing in the physical therapy space.
Yeah, so we got into this in 2017. Actually, my brother started it. He was an extremely frustrated physical therapy patient, in and out of PT for a few years for various injuries, and never really understood why the experience wasn't more digital. So, he didn't understand why he couldn't track his progress easily in and out, why he had to show up 20 minutes early to complete his intake or play phone tag with a practice to book an upcoming visit. So then they went to practices and asked, what are your biggest challenges? We learned that reimbursement's going down, costs are going up, it's hard to attract and retain physical therapists, and they viewed their technology as a liability, not an asset. So, long story longer, we ultimately determined that we needed to start from scratch and build an EMR that did everything a practice needs on one login.
And how's that been received?
It's been received really well. We went to market. We started building it in 2017, went to market late 2019, early 2020, right as the pandemic hit.
It was a great time to start a business.
Yeah, so it was a little scary at that time, but we actually found that practice owners had a minute to step back and evaluate their processes, which was a good opportunity to evaluate a new EMR. Since then, we've more than doubled every year. We're at 150 full-time employees. This year alone, we've hired 80 employees.
Wow.
Thousands of practices using Prompt.
It sounds like a rocket ship, and congratulations on everything you've built. Let's talk more about the physical therapy space specifically. The people that are listening to this show, they could be from any industry in healthcare. They could be in dentistry, optometry, and it could have relationships with physical therapists, right? And certainly could be a patient. I know I've been. I messed up my left knee 2.5 years ago, and I'm still paying the price for it. So tell us more about what makes the physical therapy space unique. What are some of the unique challenges and pain points that they're going through?
I think what's unique to physical therapy compared to other healthcare verticals is that your patients are coming back 2 to 3 times a week. So I was at my dentist this week, and my dentist smartly made me pull out my phone and said, your next visit is in 6 months. I want to see you put it in your calendar. Super easy. I wish it was that easy in PT. In PT, to get better, you have to come back 2 to 3 times a week. You need to, with that much going on, that puts a lot of stress on every department in your business. You need to be running as efficiently as possible and have a really buttoned up operation.
When if you look at dentistry, you look at physical therapy, what are some of the pain points and practice management struggles that are common across the board that you've seen?
So across the board, I find that in PT, your staff is doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing. So you need to be using software. Well, your staff is your most expensive. It's your biggest expense by far in your practice. Mm-hmm. So your staff needs to be as efficient as possible. So you need your front office staff to not be wasting time calling patients to fill visits. It's 4 to 5 calls to even connect with somebody. Next thing you know, you're 30 minutes in just to fill one visit. Your biller should be processing as many claims as possible and only working, spending their talented people. They should only be working on tasks that require skill, not, reviewing claims one by one, posting remits. So in order to be more profitable with cost rising and reimbursement going down, each and every team member needs to have that ultimate level of efficiency so that you can have better admin to provider ratios.
Well, and I love what you're talking about the staff too, right? We hear that across the board. in every industry that we work in, with the general practice, our physical therapists, our med spas, our optometrists, everybody is struggling with staffing in some to some extent. With Prompt specifically, with this tool that you've built that's super cool, I've seen it on someone's computer before, and it's like best in class technology. What are some success stories that you've seen with practices using Prompt to help with their staffing?
So, first, practices, therapists hate documentation. You'll never find a provider who wants to document more.
Yeah.
So you need to be, it's not TikTok. We want you on our system as little as possible. So a lot of practices now are using Prompt as a recruiting tool because we're keeping your providers off the system. We want you going home with no notes to complete. Not always the case, not always possible. But we have tools like, for instance, when a patient fills out their intake, that automatically populates into the subjective portion of the note. So you're removing duplicate data entry, and practices are using Prompt as a recruiting tool to hire additional staff. So I would say that's what we're most proud of, is helping to reduce provider burnout.
I love that you guys are adding value in that way, because those are some of the things that are on top of mind. And speaking of the burnout, and speaking of, some of the other challenges that you talked about, those are usually really they're seen across the board, but specifically in private practice, we've seen that. So in the course of this interview, we're going to talk about several of the issues with private practice ownership, and there are many. But I want to spend some time talking about the things that are great about private practice ownership. Can you walk me through some of those?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously think the PT industry is a fantastic industry to be in. Um, you have incredible patient demand for PT. We very rarely run into practices that have a patient demand problem. Um, Generally, we find that the problems exist on the provider staffing and retention side. But over the coming years, we see PT outpacing other industries in terms of growth. So yeah, over the next 10 years, I think PT is going to become more mainstream as well. And now it's a question of how do we scale the industry to help meet the patient demand.
Well, and speaking of growth, obviously that's your whole wheelhouse, is growing your business and helping other people grow their business. One of the things that we were talking about off script right now was how practice growth and individual career growth are really closely intertwined. Walk me through some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think so. We ran a survey amongst PTs that are leaving the profession to ask them what the number one reason is why they're leaving. We expected the answer to be salary. The number one answer was a lack of professional growth opportunities. 86% of the respondents selected that. So your practice needs to be growing. We had a roundtable with some practice owners. Josh Funk of Rehab to Perform. I highly recommend following him.
Love him.
Michelle Colley of High Bar Physical Therapy, really recommend following them. They're all doing a great job of marketing their practices, not just to new patients, but to potential providers. So they're showing the growth of their practice. They're opening new locations constantly. People are dying to work there, and they're winning because of that. So I think that practices need to, be creative in how they're marketing to new patients. Even though you likely have enough patients to fill your schedule, if you want to open more locations, you do need more patients. And you don't have to get crazy with marketing spend. There's a lot of easy things that you can do as a practice owner, whether it's attending local events, asking to post in your community's Facebook page, just posting on LinkedIn the way those owners do that I just mentioned can be really helpful.
And we'll bring Josh on the show at some point too. Josh Funk, he might be listening to this, but he's a mutual client and he's been fantastic. And one of the things that I learned from him is that too often people look at their patient growth motion as a marketing funnel, and they don't look at their staffing as a marketing funnel as well. They're not doing the things that you're talking about. They're not producing content, engaging with the community, really putting themselves out there so that when somebody's in the market and looking for work, they're top of mind, so that they're bringing in the most qualified and the most high performing, high caliber staff they can be, right?
What's helped Prompt win and what are really high performing customers is they just ask patients. They don't say, is there anyone you know who I can help? When somebody's having a good experience, they're saying, who else in your network can I help? So just asking people to advocate for you leads to a ton of patient demand.
Let's talk about patient referrals then. So walk me through patient referrals. right? That's another thing I know that you have a lot of experience and really good ideas in.
Yeah, I think the same is true at probably most businesses. It's what's helped us a lot at Prompt is when you have a promoter, you're helping somebody. They love your service, they love your product. We simply ask, who else do you know that we can be helpful to? What other practice owners in your network do you know that we can be helpful to? The same is true with your patients. People want to help people. Ask them to advocate for you. So who else do you know that I could help get better? Not, do you know somebody? You'll notice I said, do you know somebody that I could help get better? Is make it proactive. Is everybody probably knows somebody that could use PT? Is ask them to help you. And I think you'll be blown away by what comes from that. And then also just make sure you're getting Google reviews. Ask your promoters to write Google reviews. Make it easy for them. Get them the links so that they can just jump right in there, put 5 stars, and talk about how great you are. Because people are searching Google before their first visit. It needs to be really easy to book, and they need to trust who they're going to book with. So get those Google reviews as well.
I mean, so it sounds like it's not reinventing the wheel to do your marketing for your practice.
No, no.
I mean, it sounds like it's a couple of pretty strategic things that you just do those over and over again and trust the process, and you're going to see the growth come through. One of the things that on the topic of growth is expanding through new locations, right, and new brick and mortar locations. For those practices that might have had success with 1 or 2 locations and they're really looking to expand, what would you say to them?
Um, so if you're at 1 to 2 locations and you're looking to expand, the first thing is you have to have the right staff to do it. You have to be working on professional development at your practice, and you need to be attracting really good talent. So you need to find people who can go act as the clinic director at those new locations and uphold your brand and provide really good quality care. So A, you need to have the right people. And B, you have to be providing really great care because then your patients will go out and advocate for you. And 3, you need to make sure that you're drumming up patient demand through marketing your practice. All of this can be done on social media. People want to work at an exciting business that's growing, that's going to give them more opportunities in the future. You don't want to just go work somewhere and be told that you're going to do the same job for the next 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. You don't want to feel stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. Now, another thing I know that you and your team have a ton of experience in is making care as seamless as possible. Talk to me about making care seamless, both for the staff that's providing the care and for the patient that's receiving it.
Yeah, I think that in today's day and age, your patients expect a modern experience. They're searching the web to book a visit, or when they're trying to find your practice, they're searching the web to book a visit. They don't want to have to call your practice, play phone tag with your practice to book that visit. What if there's a practice with great reviews that they can pull up your schedule, book an available time for that initial eval, and it's seamless? They show up, their intake's already done, they did it on their phones, they check in a few minutes prior, everything's digital. That's what patients expect, and that's what you have to deliver. And I think that's why we're so excited about our partnership with Weave as well, is that let's say a patient calls and they don't get you, but you get a text message immediately that's totally customized. They're going to think, wow, this practice is really on top of their stuff. They'll probably text you back, get that visit booked. You need to have a really modern practice that stands out to people and makes it effortless to go through your care, because that's what people expect nowadays.
And we're super excited to be partnering with you guys too. And, we never really promote a ton on this show, but, for anyone listening, Prompt is a friend, and we're really looking forward to working with him for the foreseeable future. We've gone over a ton of really good stuff today, and I know that I've learned a ton, and I'm sure everyone listening to this has learned a ton. Last thing I want to talk about is, kind of the future of not only private practice, not only SMB healthcare, but of the PT space specifically, right? What are the things that are coming on the short-term horizon, and why should we be excited about them?
I think an exercise that we love to do at Prompt, I don't know if you've ever heard of what Airbnb did when they first started,
No.
but they went around to a bunch of their first users, and they said, what is the dream experience as a traveler? What is your, if anything were possible, you had a magic wand, what would a trip look like? And people had, out of this world extraordinary answers. Like I'd land at JFK and there'd be a limo with 1,000 people waiting outside it, yelling, welcome, welcome, Adam, welcome to New York. And my whole trip is curated. I go to all these events and it's amazing. So we ran that exercise with PT when we first started, is what is the ideal experience as a practice owner or a PT? And it's, what does a PT love to do? They love to treat patients. They don't want to be on their computer all day. They don't want to be documenting. They just want to show up in the practice and treat patients. So how do we use technology to get as close to that as possible? How do we reduce all the noise so that you can just focus on the patient experience? So in the future, we see the industry getting even closer to that. So that means reducing administrative burden, making your front desk as efficient as possible, making your billing and RCM as efficient as possible. And then in turn, that frees up your team and your staff to really be on their game, providing an incredible experience to your patients.
Couldn't say it better. And in that, we're fantastically unified. Tim, where can we find you?
Follow Prompt EMR on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. We have a bunch of really talented people on our team. So even if you're not shopping at the EMR store right now, reach out to us, shoot us an email. If you have a problem we could help solve, let us know. We're just passionate about helping this industry.
Well, that passion definitely comes through, and congrats again on everything you guys have achieved. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the show, and thank you to everybody who joined us as well by listening, watching, or any other form that this got to you. And until next time, stay happy and take care.